Everyone pick their channel? Okay. Great. Well, good to see everybody here. Very small crowd today, which is surprising to me. This is also going to be one where there are a whole lot of updates from our program team. So we are recording this. So yeah, it will be available to share with folks who are not here. If you would like, in the chat, we can get started with a little icebreaker. Your name, your pronouns, your organization, and then your favorite book that you've read recently. This is, oh, Penelope's got a good one, I see.
I just love books, so.
It's great. Well, yeah, I'll be scanning this list for recommendations. So, yeah, thank you all for being here. This is a super busy time with the Community Food Access Program because we are still in the thick of things with the grant, whether we're trying to finalize our last grantees to sign their attestations and get their money, or we're reviewing proof of payment documentation coming in from grantees who have already been paid and already spent their money. There's a lot going on with those grantees. So that's a very, this is a busy time for that. Some of you are very aware of that because you're helping us. But it's also, we're also live with the tax credit. So we'll spend some time talking about how to think about the tax credit now that we're out of the soft launch phase. We've developed some materials. We've got an information session coming up. But what do you all need to be knowing and thinking about, and how are you all strategizing about this tax credit? I just heard that tomorrow I'm going to be interviewed on 9 News about this tax credit. So this is hitting the big stage. So we'll definitely spend a lot of time talking about the tax credit. We also have some exciting updates about the consortium, which are so recent that they're not even on our agenda. But I'd like to update you all about this. The developments there. So I just want to remind everybody that, it's a busy time, and, our team is small, and we're navigating new program elements. So I just want to request your patience with us as we navigate a lot of questions for the first time. So you might have a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, but we appreciate the questions and they help us think about, how to structure this program. So here is the agenda for today. Put this in the chat. Where is the chat? So if you're not already looking at this, here it is. And first things first, we're gonna just touch on a couple, housekeeping things. Reminder that Q1 of fiscal year 2025, and this is very confusing, so I apologize for that, but Q1 of this new fiscal year for the state ended, or will end, the end of September. So 30 days after that is when your quarterly reports are due. So just a little reminder to start the process of completing those. Please feel free to reach out to me. I know we talked about this last time, but those reporting templates, if you're not quite sure how to fill them out or how to keep them useful, we can talk about how to restructure it. Maybe we want to build in a new column. Maybe we want to build in a new tab. The important thing is that these quarterly reports are collecting all of the work that you're doing, so that when we go to apply for another grant to argue that this is a good use of funds, we can show how much work is happening and how much work is being done. So quarterly reports due in October. End of October, really. Another reminder that we are shifting the dates of our November and December meetings. I'll just leave that on these agendas so that, you know, we can see it a lot of times. There have been some exciting updates with the contract extension. So when I talk about the contract extension, what I'm referring to is keeping your services from January 2025 through December 2026. So we are still finalizing the contract amount. We are very confident that it will be fairly close to the amount that you had for this first year, which is great. If you have not filled out the form that's linked here, and I'm speaking mostly to our main contractors here, the folks that signed the contract with CDA, please fill that out and get that to me as soon as possible. This will really help initiate the discussions about what to change about the scope of work and your budget. And I want to remind you that it's okay if what you put in this contract and what we sign doesn't hold true for 2 entire additional years. We can always make adjustments, but I do want us to be thinking about what are changes that we need to make for the next for the next chapter of this work in 2025 and 2026. Many of you have gotten that to me. Thank you so much. These changes do require you to have a lot of conversations with your subcontractors, if you have those, or whoever is doing the work on this team, and adjusting how much money you're putting in each bucket. And you'll have a much better sense of where the most funds are needed based off of the time you spent doing this work already. So please fill that out and send it to me. I am also very happy to meet with you so we can talk about it together. We can definitely do some strategizing if there's something you're concerned about. So little reminder there. Another reminder, and I sent this out over email, but I think it's really important when you have a web page to look at it frequently and make sure it's still accurate. So we've done that for our grants page, our tax credit pages, and our sort of cover page. But if things have changed with who someone should reach out to if they're looking for support on the tax credit, let me know. So let me just go to that page. And I know that we need to make some edits elsewhere on the page too, but I will just show you what we are talking about. Okay, so can everyone see this CDA webpage? Cool. So this basically says get help in your area. We need to change some language here. It's mostly focused on the grant. But yeah, we've got a little blurb about each of you. So please look at the section that's related to your contract work and let me know if there are updates that need making. Yes, Jay.
If I went here and I was in Huerfano County, I wouldn't know to look at the San Luis Valley Local Foods Coalition. So I realize that you've got your
Hmm.
organizations listed up here, but I almost feel like the counties or the regions that are served should be at like the heading of each of those boxes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great, yeah. Um, what I worry about with that is like, and we get this feedback all the time. It's like, well, I don't consider myself to be in the northeast, part of the state. How would I know to look there? So, let's just, rethink that. There is also the challenge, Jay, of, gosh, probably like at least 10 counties don't have a representative. So, yeah, I'd be really curious. I'm sure there's a way to sort of see on the back end the kind of engagement on this webpage, but I'm very curious how effective this webpage is at directing folks to you guys. But I do appreciate that feedback. And yeah, we should maybe rethink the way this looks entirely. So, and then of course that goes for, oh yeah, Penelope, go ahead.
Well, I just was gonna say, maybe even just a map of Colorado, when you hover over a county and a pop-up says, reach out to this entity.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why folks were resistant to that on our, I honestly can't remember, but let me just resurface it because I don't know what the hesitation was there. I feel like it was some kind of excessive. I don't know if you guys are all familiar, but the state, um, it's now law that the state has to meet these accessibility requirements, which is great. It means that, yeah, folks with visual disabilities, auditory disabilities, a number of other, like reading and processing disabilities will be able to, yeah, visit any state website and have the site be accessible. The challenge is there are a lot of ways that all of the program managers across the state aren't quite sure what we have to do to make our websites accessible. So we're in a huge learning process there with accessibility, and sometimes sometimes things have to be a certain way to meet that accessibility requirement. But I'm kind of speculating on what the hesitation was with that map. So yeah, thank you for the feedback on this page. Keep it coming. And if you haven't let me know about any updates, please do. Okay. One more plug. I don't know if I know there are some newer contractors here who may not have joined our newsletter, our list or our email newsletter. So please do that. If you haven't, you haven't missed much. We haven't been sending out a whole lot, just because we've been so in the thick of things and there hasn't been much to report. But now that we are kind of at the end of the granting process, and we're going to have a lot of updates about the tax credit and about the consortium, please do join our listserv. And let me show you how to do that. It is basically just going over here to our left-hand navigation to get CFA updates. And yeah, just fill this out and sign up for our newsletter. Okay. Last thing I want to say with the housekeeping events is thank you to everybody who was able to be involved with our press event last Friday. It was super fun. Very special to have Ayeva there. Angeli was there. We had a lot of folks from, obviously from CDA and the state. And then we had a lot of grantees in the Denver metro area who were able to join us for, the the governor's appearance and a few words on our program. So it felt really fun to get together in person and yeah, to just kind of have a little attention from the governor's office about our program. So it everyone is quite impressed with the work that you all are doing, and we want to keep saying that loudly. So it was a really fun event. Ava, do you have any comments from your experience? If you don't, that's okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great event. There's not a whole lot else to say other than that. I thought that it was incredible, honestly, to just watch the owners of that store. I think it was really touching to see them be so excited that the governor was in their store, and talk about all of the good things that they received from this organization and the grant, the way that it actually worked in their store. I think it's one thing for us to kind of talk about what people are doing with the grant money that they receive in their practice, but to actually hear the owners themselves explain how much of a difference it's made in their store, I just think that that's a really, that was touching to me. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thanks. I totally agree. And it's been so fun for our team to get out and meet all of our grantees, which we hope to keep doing. But yeah, it was very special to just reflect back on all the work that's happened, how impactful these funds have been, and yeah, talk about the potential of the tax credit program. So yeah, that kind of leads me to the next topic here, which is, yeah, we finally get to officially announce who all these businesses are who were awarded funds through the grant. So if you haven't seen it already, we have a map on our grants website. Please feel free to get in there, get into your region. If you don't know already, get into other regions and kind of see who was awarded, what business types. And yeah, feel free to let that be kind of a talking point. If you're wondering, in my region, a lot of farm stands weren't awarded. Let me talk to some other outreach and TA provider in another region to see if there's, a strategy they had. Feel free to just let that open doors for conversation between you guys. So with that said, if you all would like to make an announcement in a local or regional outlet, whether it's your own newsletter or a local paper, please feel free to do that. Do run it by me if you don't mind. There are a couple things with our federal funds that we have to say, and I can just review for accuracy and all that kind of thing. But if now is a good time for you all to kind of promote this and your role in this, we're all for it, and we want to support you doing that. So from here on, we can start talking loudly about this, which I know we haven't been able to and has been frustrating. So don't hesitate to reach out if you want some support and thinking about ways to utilize this. I hope this work helps you all get funded for other projects, right? I really want this important work to speak volumes for all of you. So that press event also marks the beginning of the hard launch of our tax credit. So I wanted to spend some time talking about some updates we've got for the tax credit. I'll just start all of this by saying, even though it's the hard launch, I want everyone to remember that we have two plus years to do outreach, right? There isn't the same rush that we asked of you for the grant, we don't have that same kind of pressure. So I don't want anyone to feel like they just need to spray this news as far as it can go. I still want everybody to remember that, yeah, there are a lot of elements to submitting a complete application. There are a lot of complexities to navigate. And there is that risk for the business owner of buying something that may not be eligible for a tax credit. And if they're counting on a tax credit, it is a risk. So I want you all to know that even though we are in the hard launch and we can start talking about this, it's still okay to take a conservative outreach approach. So, yeah, I would recommend kind of continuing on with the way you were thinking about the soft launch and identifying who's a good fit, who has a very strong case, and yeah, maybe who has already purchased something or who is planning on making a big purchase. Can we, yeah, maybe submit a request for a letter of eligibility that will confirm that what they will buy will be eligible? And then how can we strategize about when and how to make that purchase? So, any questions about that general outreach tone? Okay. So on Friday, we will host an information session. Friday's information session will be totally in English without interpretation. We will host a separate information session with the same content on the following Tuesday, October 1st, and it will be entirely in Spanish. So just, yeah, if you've signed up, make sure you've signed up for the correct one. Again, both will be recorded. And the main goal with this information session is to basically reiterate what we've got on the website in vocal form. So yeah, we'll be going through, we have a presentation that is very dull. There are no pictures in it. We are going through everything that the website says. So that's what the information session is going to be. We do hope to host more information sessions with like refreshed content and yeah, more ways of framing this. I also do want to remind everyone that we do plan to create that beautiful video that we've been talking about. But this information session on Friday is kind of like, yeah, the first one of this new program. I want to shout out Jay. Jay made some really great examples to illustrate that sort of the concept of like, what do I get back as a business owner if I've submitted a tax credit? And she created these 3 situations. Jay, I'm using a version of that for the information session because I think it helps illustrate it really well. And I do think that's a big sort of head scratching part of this whole thing. So,
And I just put the link in the chat to my site. And if you down to the bottom, I've got these 3 tax credit scenarios, which, because I've been trying to explain to people, how are you getting reimbursed for equipment if you don't have taxes and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, Mickey seems to think it is spelled out well, I guess. And
yeah.
And also, Mickey, I'm curious about this information session on Friday. It's really for people wanting to apply for this tax credit, and then other, like, I'm trying to get other partners who kind of want to be able to talk about it to watch it. But I wonder if you have a lot of people signed up for that, or if you even know how many people are going to show, and like, should we be promoting our farmers and food businesses to take a look at that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've
Okay.
got, last I checked, we had about 35 people signed up for the English session. Yeah, I would say invite everybody who's curious. Yeah, come one, come all. It will really not be much more than me sort of walking through the steps. Yeah, touching on what it means to be an eligible business, what kinds of equipment is eligible. It won't be a lot of insider information. But yeah, I do think it's helpful. I am curious. I mean, we said an hour. I am not sure how much time we will have for questions. So hopefully we answer a lot of potential questions. We also have a lot of sort of like frequently asked questions that we'll go over at the end that will hopefully be yeah, that will hopefully be pertinent. Some of which I'd like to go over with you guys right now because some of it's new information. But yes, Jay, please feel free to invite farmers, retailers, farm stands, partners, lenders. I have seen a few lenders register, which is exciting. So yeah, feel free to invite folks to this information session. It will be recorded again, and we'll probably do another information session, you know, down the line. This is a program we'll have for the next 6 years. So I doubt this is the last time we do this. Any questions about the information session? And for you guys, yeah, I recommend coming. If you feel like you just want these concepts to be solidified a little bit more, I definitely recommend having your subcontractors who maybe aren't here today register. And yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing to tell folks to come to. So
Yeah, and I'm interested in coming because I want to hear what the people attending that don't know anything about this, I want to like wrap my head around what their questions are going to be. So then I can already kind of have that in mind when I am talking to my folks.
yeah, totally. Exactly. So another great reason to come. Okay. Other updates for you all about the tax credit. We have created the guide that, yeah, similar to the guide that we had for the grant. It's on our website. I'll just share my screen again to show you where. We've got it in English and in Spanish. And as a reminder, we have the capability of translating it in another language. We do just need some time to do that translation. So can you guys see this, the tax credit page? So here's our, registration for the information session. And then these are the guides. So here's what it looks like. And again, this is intended to be print out that outreach and PA providers can take to businesses, and it has all of the information. And again, a request here. If you see something that doesn't look right on this page, let me know. This is the version of the Help in Your Area webpage in the guide. So yeah, so that guide is available on our website in English and Spanish, and it can be translated if needed into another language. We just ask that you give us some time to, let us get it translated. We've also created a flyer. It is in your outreach contractor resource guide. Sorry, resource shared folder. So yeah, that is our, you'll notice it looks a whole lot like the flyer for the grant. Yeah, give it a look. Let us know what you think. I left that blank spot there as requested for the grant flyer so that you all could, input your own contact information there, but yeah, I think feedback on that flyer is welcome. I'm also thinking about how yeah, as we open up the consortium and we're going to be doing outreach for the consortium, would it make sense to have two programs on the same flyer or two separate flyers? There is a lot of communication, a lot of information to convey, but I think we'll just create a lot of versions of the flyer and you all can select the flyer that makes the most sense for the kind of outreach you're doing. Right now, with the tax credit being the more open opportunity right now, that flyer works, but take a look at that and let me know your feedback. You guys, as always, are welcome to create your own flyers. Just run it by me. I think that's been a really helpful thing in the past. You all kind of taking a spin on our materials and making them more relevant for your audience. So feel free to do that. Just maybe run it by me before you print out 500 of them. Okay. I also wanted to bring up the lender spreadsheet that's in our shared drive, our shared folder. Last I checked, which was a little bit of a while ago, I didn't see anything populated. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So I have not been doing a lot of connecting with lenders, but I created this spreadsheet for all of you who I know are thinking along those lines for how to pair this tax credit with a loan, ideally a low interest loan, bridge loan of some kind. Feel free to populate this spreadsheet if you feel that that information is something that the whole group would benefit from and that lender is excited about financing these kinds of businesses for this purpose. Okay, any questions about that lender spreadsheet? Let me share my screen again and just show you where all this is. Okay, so here's our contractor resources folder, which maybe could do with some spring cleaning, fall cleaning organization. But here in this tax credit folder, we've got copies of the guides, this lender spreadsheet that I was just talking about, and then the two flyers. And yeah, the tax credit flyer in English and Spanish. Okay, any questions or comments about any of those materials? Okay. All right, switching over to some updates that we've been getting to some of the questions you all have been asking about this tax credit. So what you're seeing now is the boring slideshow that I referred to. This is the information session PowerPoint. And I want to just scroll down to go over, oh, Jay, here's your examples. Just want to skip to the frequently asked questions. So a long time ago, some of you asked, what if a farmer or a store owner buys some equipment but is paying it off in monthly installments? They have a payment plan in place. Maybe it's a payment plan that lasts multiple years. What will they get the tax credit for? And when can they apply? Can they only apply when they totally pay off the piece of equipment that they purchased? And if so, do they get a tax credit for the entire purchase price that they paid for over multiple tax years, or just this tax year? What about interest? What about depreciation? We didn't have an answer, so we took it to the Department of Revenue. And the Department of Revenue had a really interesting response. Trying to find, here we go. the Department of Revenue told us that a piece of equipment that is purchased, the entity becomes a purchaser technically when they come into possession of that piece of equipment. And the tax credit can be applied to the entire purchase price, whether or not it's paid off. So this is good news for our applicants because it means they don't need, if they're buying a walk-in cooler and it costs $50,000, they don't need to pay off all $50,000 in order to get a tax credit, which is great. Yeah, pretty exciting. What I do want to say is that the program is going to create some bounds around this. So it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about ways this could be exploited or used as fraud, right? So yeah, we will need to see that loan agreement. And depending on the kind of purchase, we'll need to see that some percentage of that piece of equipment has been paid off. The percentage may be different depending on what kind of equipment it is. And the reason is, some pieces of equipment are unlikely to be utilized in ways other than the program intends. So an example would be a walk-in cooler, a display case. Yeah, things that are designed that are explicitly spelled out and cannot really be otherwise used for anything except that purpose. On the other end of the spectrum is a vehicle, right? Vehicles can be used for a lot of things, whether it's, a delivery to a business that's not a small food retailer or personal use, right? So the program is I'm just gonna be honest with you guys, we are going to have a challenging time determining these bounds, but it is good news. It does open the door, and it will kind of be up to the applicant to really make their case that the piece of equipment that they have purchased but have not yet paid off has already been used exclusively for the program goals and will continue, right? So yeah, that's a big development, and we need your help, honestly, in communicating the goals of this program to applicants and helping them submit an application that alleviates doubt, worry, risk from awarding a tax credit to a business applying for example, a vehicle that hasn't been fully paid off. What questions do you have about this? No questions about this. Really?
When is there going to be like published rules about the different types of equipment and kind of how much you need to show that you've paid off? Or when will it be good to kind of start messaging these to potential applicants? Because I feel like things are still being finalized.
They are, yeah. Yeah. So one idea that's been discussed is demonstrating at least 20% of the cost has been paid. So right, that's tough though, because some of these expenses are really, really expensive, and monthly payments over a year might not amount to 20%. So your question about when, Hunter, is very good. I think one solid takeaway here as you communicate this with potential applicants is making a purchase in the beginning of a calendar year gives a lot more, gives a little bit of security, right? So let's just go with an example. A farmer buys a vehicle in January, submits their application that's reviewed in April for, yeah, a vehicle that, you know, they've made maybe 2 payments on, and they've just started to use for new distribution channels, right? Maybe they're making new business relationships with a small food retailer in a low income, low access community. So this is high risk. The department may review it and say, we're not seeing very much of this piece of equipment paid off, and we're not seeing that this has demonstrably made an impact. So, you know, it's questionably eligible, right? So please resubmit in August, and they'll have more months of 1, paying off that equipment, and 2, demonstrating its use. And that's a much stronger case. So I'm sorry that this is so gray. But yeah, that's kind of what we've got right now. That helps.
So I have a kind of follow-up question. Say it's a 24-month term. Would they be able to apply in the second year if they've kind of made, say, 14 payments out of 24, and then apply for the whole cost, even though they would be applying in the year after they made the initial purchase?
So that's the tough part about this way. The way the legislation is written, they have to apply the year they make the purchase. And they
Okay.
can get the entire amount of that, of that piece of equipment, even though they haven't paid it off, even though they don't plan to pay it off for 24 months per their agreement. But yeah, the year they make that purchase is when they have to submit their application. So,
And that is when they come into possession of the equipment is
yes,
kind of the
yeah.
defining feature. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your questions. Marion.
So I have a question that I had before, and basically that is, for instance, if you're buying a tractor, right? That's the example we used before. But the tractor doesn't do anything but work towards food that is grown. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just close the door because they're sawing here. Hold on 1 second.
No worries.
Sorry about that. It relates to what is going to serve the goal of adding your production in order to service people who are food insecure or, you know, do not have access to food because of the expense, or because you don't really have a direct relationship with the underserved. How do you justify the equipment that you buy to show that it directly goes to the underserved or the food insecure?
Yeah. So,
You know, it goes back to the same problem of
yeah,
you're just beginning to create this relationship perhaps with retail outlets, which is actually happening, but it's not going to happen on day one, you know?
yeah.
So,
It's very tough, Marion, but I think, you know, the eligibility is dependent on, is the equipment for the program goals, right?
right.
And as you all know, there's so many gray areas in this. So I would recommend that these big purchases are made. I mean, the difference between the grant language and the tax credit application answers, right? For the
Yep.
grant, people were responding with, we will make this relationship. This will result in, yeah, more sales to SNAP customers. You know, this will happen in the future. With the grant, sorry, that was for the grant. For the tax credit, we're going to be looking at, did it happen? When you bought this, did it result? What demonstrate how it's made an impact, and that will determine its eligibility. So I would highly recommend those businesses, if they're thinking about purchasing something that they're going to be dependent on a tax credit for, apply when they've got that demonstrable evidence of, I bought this tractor and it resulted in this much expanded access for a low income population.
So do you think an example of that would be if it increased your output?
Yeah, increase your
Output. Because for
output.
instance, if you're a vegetable grower and you bought a tractor, because that helps, you know, bring down the labor costs, helps you be more efficient, helps you in many ways, right? But it's not directly related to growing food specifically for a specific community. You
Yeah,
know, that's where it's going to be almost impossible to prove. This
right.
was the question that Larry Lemke came up with.
Mm. Yeah,
Because really for tax credits for farmers, it has to be a big expense. Otherwise, it's not worth it
right. Yeah.
to apply.
Yeah. And this is tough. This is really tough. I think it's especially tough for the farmers in the Denver metro area.
Yeah.
But let's keep like talking about examples of, you know, someone playing around with an idea, Marion, and how, yeah, how that might fit. And we can utilize that eligibility request form to see some examples and talk through that. And honestly, Marion, this will help us kind of get to Hunter's question of when will we have firm, yeah, a more firm and clear black and white.
So
Got
how
it.
should we ask them to apply for the eligibility letter? Is that what might solve that problem?
Yeah, I think at this point now, I know in the past, you know, few months with the soft launch, I was sort of discouraging you guys to have
Yeah.
people fill out that form.
Uh-huh.
I was hoping we would just sort of have, you know, bring those questions to us. But at this point, now that it's a hard launch, I do recommend, you know, if folks are in this situation of, I want to buy something, would it get a tax credit? I do recommend directing folks to the letter of eligibility request form. And
Okay.
yeah, we'll have it in writing.
Because
And
that's the only way we're actually ever really going to get an answer.
Yeah. Well, right. I think,
I mean, I would hate for them to go through the process of buying something, paying for it, and then not getting it.
exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it might be worth the trouble if it is a longer term program, because obviously those purchases aren't going to be made this year anymore. I mean, harvest time is coming. There's not even going to be time to look
Right.
at what you want. But when you're planning for next year,
Yeah.
that's when it becomes important.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Marion. Perdita.
I want to just quickly respond to Marion, just to say that, I mean, I think also just in the spirit of what the program is for, it does seem like there has to be some relationship to low income, low access communities. And so, I mean, I think that if that exists, then there can be an interpretation, or it can be written in a way that,
Yeah.
you know, that piece of equipment is servicing that purpose. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think if that exists, then I think it's doable. I do know someone in our area who received a grant and bought a tractor, and they have increased their vegetable production a lot, and literally, you know, they are, you know, the grant was written in a way so that they were saying this would increase the access or the amount of access people would have to increased vegetables in that in this low income community, but that's not the only community that they're serving.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to respond with that example. But
Yeah.
my question, sorry.
I just want to say thanks for that. Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, it's like if the tractor results in more product, who's benefiting from more product? Right.
So my question was about going back to that scenario of the person purchasing let's just say a tractor on loan,
Mhm.
and then let's just make it uncomplicated and say that there was eligibility and they got the amount, the 75% of what the purchase price was.
Mhm.
There's nothing then stopping them from then just paying that off, is there?
Yeah. Ideally, I mean, right, they get the credit, they can use the money for whatever they see. I mean, maybe the loan is so low interest that they're like, I'm just gonna keep this payment, but we're not gonna care about that. So yeah,
Thank
they
you.
could pay it off, they could use it for other purposes. They could use it to buy another piece of equipment and then they give tax credit for that. Okay, great questions. Thank you guys. And yeah, you know, this is just really tough. It's not, I wish this was so much more black and white. Yeah, Jay, go ahead.
Well, in Marion's situation, it seems like if that farmer is already farming and growing food and providing it to that low income, low access retailer or community, then that is a great case. But like I feel like buying a tractor and starting a farm is going to be way harder to make. So that's just what I was thinking. Like, if somebody is trying to start a farm, maybe they need to get farming and develop those relationships with the retailers or their customers, prove that, and then buy that big equipment in the next year or two.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jay. And Hunter, I'm thinking about yeah, the folks that you've been helping. It's just there's a lot of ifs. So Hunter's been supporting a business who submitted an eligibility request form, and there's a lot of ifs. Like, so their letter of eligibility, you know, dependent on them sort of checking a few more boxes, might say, sure, this would be eligible if this actually happens. You know, if it's demonstrable that it goes in the direction that you say it will in your letter. So yeah, that's exactly right. Marion, do you have another comment?
Yeah, just because I was toggled in my memory, lenders, do you have any lenders that you can steer us towards, by the way? We talked about that briefly.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have created a spreadsheet, but I'm requesting that you all fill it out with those lenders. I haven't I think that's a bridge we can cross when our team gets a little more bandwidth, but we're kind of swamped right now. But I think that we can start to explore that a little bit more once we're totally finished with the grant. But in the meantime, if you all are finding lenders that are really good fits for this, please populate this spreadsheet and yeah, let each other know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I want to reserve time this time for Lauren and Lucy to present their SNAP retailer guide. But first, I'd like to give you all a few really exciting and very, very topical updates about the consortium. So we've been talking a lot about we've talked from time to time about the consortium. There's a presentation in our shared resource folder about what the consortium's duties are. We finally have some updates. So we have contracted with 3 food hubs, and as of last night, they've all signed their contracts. So these food hubs will be obligated to deliver to the small food retailers who are consortium members. So who are those people? Those are the awardees at this time. So emails are going to go out soon saying the consortium's work hasn't quite started yet, right? We'll be planning a meeting soon, but in the meantime, here is a food hub and here are the member benefits you can take advantage of while you're a consortium member, while their contract is active. So some of those benefits are, well, one, like these food hubs are in some cases expanding their delivery route to go to some of these small food retailers. We have heard multiple examples of our grantees asking us, hey, we need help finding a distributor. We can't find anyone to deliver to us. So that will be exciting to kind of immediately start to address that problem. Our consortium members will also have special rates from those food hubs and a number of other benefits. The member benefits kind of differ depending on which food hub will service them. So we are also tentatively planning our first consortium meeting October 30th. I will send you all a lot more information about that when we set it in stone. But if you want to just jot that down in pencil, that's what we're hoping for our first consortium meeting. At that first consortium meeting, we will be talking about why the consortium. What do you get out of this consortium? Yeah, so that's what to expect at that first meeting. We also, before that, want to have an opportunity for folks who did not receive a grant to be part of the consortium. So we'll be creating an application. That application will mostly be, asking the questions to determine if they meet the definition of small food retailer or small family farm. So we will be sure to have that application open and active and have plenty of time for other members to join our consortium before that first meeting. So I will let you all know when we have that ready. We'll also send out a newsletter about it. But yeah, maybe keep in mind that, if there are any folks in your region who weren't awarded, and honestly, retailers are kind of the folks who are going to benefit more from the consortium based off of the way the legislation was written, the duties, based on how the duties were written into the legislation. So if they are a retailer in the consortium, they'll have access to the member benefits through the food hubs, but they'll also have the ability to get tax credits, separate tax credit from our equipment tax credit on their delivery fees that they incur. So a lot more on this to come. There's so much still this consortium is going to take on a life of its own, which we are so excited about. But I would say just know that we are getting closer to that first consortium meeting. And if you have anyone in mind who applied, would be a really good fit, meaning they are a retailer who could take advantage of those member benefits. Maybe keep them in mind, and you'll know when we have an application ready to send them. Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, so you have a better idea of who, I know I've got a list that you gave me, but you have a better idea of who applied, period, who got it, who didn't get it. So, but you're saying it's on us to do the outreach to those folks. I'm just curious if you could send an email. I mean, and you said, yeah, if they're in your newsletter, they'll get it. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you're like, you guys, like we should be inviting them to join that consortium.
Yeah, they'll be invited. I'm happy to, yeah, everybody who applied was added to our listserv. So they will know when this is an opportunity. I'm bringing this up more because there might be some TA that's needed. Because part of what's involved with their application is all the same things that are required to get the grant, to apply for the tax credit. So if you are a small food retailer, that means submitting your food retail permit, your 10,000 square foot proof, your staple food proof. So I'm bringing this to your attention more that there might be some TA involved with helping people apply. But yeah, if you, Jay, for your region, I don't know that there's really anybody that, you know, not off the top of my head, can I think of someone who's like, oh yeah, they would be a great fit and they didn't get awarded. But if you know, I'm happy to brainstorm that with other regions. Lauren.
Sorry if I missed this. Did you share which 3 food hubs were awarded?
The 3 food hubs were Farm Runners. And actually, let me pull this up, share my screen again. Okay. So Farm Runners is serving this region here that we're calling the Western Slope. Well, we're calling them service areas to differentiate them from the regions that you all serve. So this is the Western Slope service area. Valley Roots Food Hub is serving the South Central service area, and East Denver Food Hub is serving the Denver Metro and Northeast food or service area. So these dots are the current retail consortium members. The purple are stores and the red are farm stands. So Lauren, in your zone, it is kind of split between 2 food hubs servicing them. But down here in Durango, there's only really 2 stores who, yeah, are consortium members at this time. And then a number of farm stands. But yeah, so
Well,
this is,
and
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, just a question about the map and how it's kind of split on in our region. Is this map available will this map publicly be available so that retailers in Southwest Colorado know if Farm Runners is servicing them or Valley Roots is servicing them?
Yeah, and they're gonna get a direct email from me.
Perfect.
Because the member benefits are different based off of what each food hub submitted in their proposal. So yeah, I mean, for some of these guys, it's a big deal to even just get a delivery. So yeah, that, you know, we will be publishing a consortium webpage, opening up that application, which again will be very similar to all of the applications we've had through our program, and putting out a notification in our newsletter. So yeah, as you can see, we just have a lot to do and we have to do it all at the same time. So yeah, I wanted to let you guys know where we're at with the consortium. But yeah, we will plan to publish this map on our website, assuming it's accessible. Any questions about this? Marian.
So when you join, do you join directly to the food hub or do you join through the CDA and they assign you to the food hub?
Yeah, so you will apply to be a member of the consortium by filling out the application on CDA's website. Assuming you are, proven eligible, you will then be told these are, these are opportunities that you can take advantage of by working with the food hub that's servicing your service area. But they will have to go ahead and like make a member account. Like the member benefits won't just sort of start happening to them. They will have to like initiate like a client relationship with the food hub. So yeah. Is that
But
clear?
essentially the application runs through you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The legislation does say the consortium is only open to certain types of businesses, so we have to determine that eligibility.
Okay. Will there be other food hubs later on, or is this it?
This is it. However, this is it for like that RFP. There's plenty of other work that we can do to accomplish the goals of the consortium by connecting small food retailers with small family farms and connecting, maybe more local, like a smaller service area food hub with small food retailers.
Yeah, that might be more interesting because it's a big state.
It
and
is,
there's a lot of, you know what I mean, a lot of mileage to cover for deliveries.
Yeah. Right. And so like what will become of this consortium? There are so many possibilities, but could it be that a food hub maybe decides it's in their best interest to contract out with a smaller sort of food aggregator so that they can pass on those member benefits without actually going there themselves, or maybe delivering product there once a month, but not doing that last mile delivery? That's a possibility. I feel like we're going to really, with this consortium, to tackle these distribution challenges, we're going to need to have pretty localized solutions.
Yeah, for instance, in our area, the Boulder Farmers Market, right, has the beginning of a food hub.
Right.
Because they've really been doing food distribution beyond their market days and throughout the winter. So that could be a smaller, you know what I mean, aggregator, given how it's more locally accessible.
Right.
Keep those costs down.
Yeah.
Particularly the transportation costs.
Yeah.
So wonder how we will make that happen.
Yeah. Penelope, do you want to?
Well, I honestly keep debating on if I want to say anything. I'm like, up, down, up, down. It's interesting, just like, this may not be really the venue for that, but just that conversation in general, I think is a state level conversation and is happening in kind of different groups. And just one thing I've heard, I'm not saying this is the way, please don't take it as that, but one thing I've heard from food hubs is there's enough food hubs happening. What food hubs need to be more successful is support with routes and whatnot, because they've kind of nailed down a lot of how that, anyway, that's, again, I'm not even related to a food hub, so I'm speaking a little bit out of turn, but it's a conversation I've been in another group, and just interesting to continue to hear that conversation in other spaces.
Yeah. Food hubs and their logistics. I mean, it's logistics for like a full-on for-profit, lowest, cheapest price, that's complicated enough. But then when you layer in, no, we're trying to support the farmer. We're trying to give them another market. We're trying to let them keep the largest percentage of the food dollars possible. We all of a sudden are looking at very thin margins to drive trucks over snowy mountain passes, do do everything that Cisco does, except, you know, with intentionally small margins. So it's going to be very interesting work. And yeah, in the way, you know, we do hope that all of you engage with the consortium. You know, your contract states that you will help people apply to be part of the consortium, but the extent to which you want to like be an active listener in those consortium meetings, you know, yeah, that is up to you, and that is up to the way it relates to the rest of the work you're doing, right? So yeah, I do want to kind of keep that in mind. You know, we're not expecting all of you to go and solve these problems. These are big problems, but to the extent that you are already sort of, this is sort of the mission of your work, we do welcome you to be part of this consortium. But right, the contract is help consortium members who are eligible join that consortium, help them with that gathering of their invoices, et cetera. So all that TA work that you're all very familiar with through the grant. So I'm going to stop and pass it over to Lucy and Lauren.
Can I ask
I'm
one
happy
more
to
quick question,
Oh.
Nikki?
Okay, go ahead.
Is there like an established kind of structure to how these meetings are going to go? I've ended up in some committees recently where we spent the first couple of meetings debating whether we wanted to follow certain rules of order and have a president and stuff. Are you doing things to kind of set it up for success right off the bat?
We definitely have to. It's going to get unwieldy. I mean, we already have 98 members. We hope to have more. We need a leadership group. You know, we need a team. We need to determine how to subdivide, because in large meetings, we're going to be talking about certain things that aren't interesting or relevant or, you know, problematic at all for other members. So how do we divide out this consortium while also coming together? So yes, there's a lot of structure questions we need to make some decisions on before we have our first meeting. So yeah.
Okay, happy to contribute to that kind of design conversations if you want to meet sometime in the next few
Thanks,
weeks.
Hunter. Yes, would love that. Okay. I can pass this over to Lucy and Lauren. I'm happy to share my screen if you guys like. We are looking right now at our contractor resources folder, and in this folder, we've got this incredible, so we've got two guides, one that was made by the USDA, I think, and then a better one that was made by Lucy and Lauren and another group working through the Blueprint to End Hunger. So feel free to take it away.
Sorry, I can start, and then Lucy, feel free to just jump in where I leave off. But this project was kind of a statewide project of people around the state who, kind of like this group, are finding ourselves in a lot of like outreach and technical assistance roles, helping these businesses that are critical to like healthy, affordable food access be successful in doing that. And one thing that we were noticing across the state and in so many different communities was a lack of sort of these small independent grocery stores having SNAP certification. And a lot of small grocery stores applying to become SNAP authorized, but then getting denied. And so we dug in a little bit, and, you know, surprise, surprise, the application process for a grocery store or retailer to apply to become SNAP authorized is extremely challenging, very technical, very confusing. And if English is not your first language, it feels almost impossible. And then on top of that, if a retailer does apply and get denied, it's really, really hard to figure out why. And their overall is just, we couldn't find any technical assistance that existed for retailers in the state of Colorado. Because as many of you know, MarketLink can provide support for farmers and ranchers and farmers markets, but helping retailers is out of their scope. So there's just this huge gap and opportunity. So our group for the past, gosh, maybe like 2 years now, Lucy, do you think, has been meeting? And we have been doing in-person technical assistance, helping retailers get through their SNAP application and successfully become authorized. And through that process, we kind of developed this toolkit that very similar to the guidelines PowerPoint that Mickey and her team created for the grant and the tax credit. It's just like a tool for a technical assistance provider to use, or potentially even a retailer themselves to use to help them through this application process, because it's not very intuitive. Lucy, anything you want to add?
No por ahora, tengo una historia, pero esa me gustaría como que fuera al final. Puede proseguir usted, gracias.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we don't need to walk through this toolkit. It's available in our contractor Google Drive. It's also on the Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger's website. It's in English and in Spanish. And on the Blueprint's website is a 1-hour webinar that our team recorded explaining this toolkit in more detail. So that's another resource if you're interested. But yeah, overall, we have just found a lot of success, just like it's just a perfect parallel to this project that we're all on this call for. That in-person support, it makes all the difference. Lucy, do you want to share your story?
Sí, claro. Cuando empecé en este proyecto, me sentí muy emocionada de poder participar porque mi primer idioma es español y siempre estoy tratando de ayudar a mi comunidad. Sabemos que muchas de nuestras familias siempre están asistiendo a las pequeñas tiendas, que son las que están al alcance, que pueden ellas asistir. Y me sentí muy emocionada. He estado colaborando con Lauren y con otras personas en crear esto. Esto creo que es creado más de la experiencia que hemos tenido con las personas que hemos estado ayudando para que puedan aplicar para este beneficio de SNAP. Recientemente me siento muy contrariada. Tengo una persona que esa persona aplicó, primero aplicamos para SNAP, se lo negaron, después aplicamos para el fondo del CDA, para la beca del CDA, y su aplicación desafortunadamente no se envió a tiempo por cuestiones técnicas, no alcanzó a entrar. Sin embargo, he seguido teniendo la confianza de la persona, seguimos avanzando, volvimos a aplicar para SNAP. En esta ocasión le pidieron tantos documentos que yo realmente me sentí hasta indignada porque le pidieron sus taxes personales, sus taxes del negocio, que el contrato de arrendamiento para que él no fuera el dueño, un sinfín de cosas solamente para poderle otorgar este beneficio. Me siento, como les digo, un poco contrariada porque esta persona sigue insistiendo porque su tienda está precisamente en un punto donde hay mucha comunidad hispana. Y a esa persona le da tristeza que las personas vayan a la tienda del dólar que está a un costado de su tienda a comprar cosas que no son nutritivas, cuando su tienda tiene carnes, tiene verduras, tiene productos secos, o sea, tiene todo lo que las personas necesitan. Y él me dice, me siento tan triste cuando las personas vienen y no leen el letrero que dice que no acepto la tarjeta de SNAP, vienen con sus compras y me las dejan aquí en el mostrador porque no pueden comprarla, porque no tienen efectivo para hacerlo. Entonces, no sé de qué manera podamos tratar de traer estas historias para que las personas que están haciendo esas decisiones realmente puedan ver estas barreras. No son barreras que las personas no están pasando, sino simple y sencillamente cosas que pasan, que si es un poco de ayuda, no es que va a ayudar a la tienda, va a ayudar a todo un vecindario. En esa parte hay algunos lotes de casas móviles donde sabemos que viven personas que son de muy bajos ingresos. Entonces, ¿por qué no ver esto desde otra perspectiva diferente de realmente ayudar? Para mí lo principal es ayudar. Volví a hablar con mi cliente y decirle, ¿qué es lo que piensa usted? ¿Qué pensó después de toda la documentación que le pidieron y que otra vez se la volvieron a negar? Y él me dijo, vamos a intentarlo nuevamente. Eso es lo que me da pasión de continuar, de traer esto a la mesa y dejarles saber a ustedes qué es lo que pasa. Como lo comentó Loren, quizá una de las cuestiones es que esa aplicación solamente está en inglés. Quizás si está en español, la persona pueda leerla él mismo y él puede entenderlo. Porque aunque yo le pueda dar este kit de herramientas, la aplicación sigue estando en inglés. Entonces, estas son algunas cuestiones de barreras que se tienen. Ahora, si la aplicación sigue estando en inglés, ¿por qué no tener una persona que realmente ayude a las personas a llenar la aplicación? Que haya un lugar a donde la persona vaya, no a través del teléfono, que la persona se sienta cómoda de ir a un lugar a donde puedan ayudarle uno a uno a llenar esa aplicación. Una persona quizá yo le he ayudado y yo no soy especialista en eso. Sin embargo, mi afán de querer ayudarlo y de que él me tiene esa confianza de mostrarme sus documentos, me ha dado esa confianza de poder continuar y de que él quiere intentarlo una tercera vez. Entonces, es confuso y podemos tener estas herramientas, pero al final creo que es más justo cuando tenemos esas personas uno a uno que nos puedan ayudar mejor y que hagamos labor de cambiar todas estas barreras que tenemos en sí. No sé si ustedes tengan alguna pregunta para mí.
Thank you so much, Lucy and Lauren. Yeah, I attended the webinar about the creation of this guide, and my takeaway was like, gosh, compared to what's required to become SNAP authorized, our grant, our tax credit is a breeze, which says a lot because we're asking for a lot of documents. We're asking for a lot of answers to questions. So yeah, when it's working with the feds, I mean, they're getting into your business about yeah, whether or not you're allowed to take SNAP. So I encourage you all to take a look at this guide. If you encounter a store who wants to become SNAP authorized but just feels a little overwhelmed by the process, that's a place you can direct them. We already know that farm stands and farms and farmers markets have the option of working with MarketLink. So separate process, separate requirements for farm stands. But I just want to thank Lucy and Lauren for helping to create this guide, helping those store owners become SNAP authorized. And yeah, just doing that in-person work, like Lucy said, that's so needed to break down these barriers. So.
And then Mickey, can I jump in and say that we just got some more funding to continue doing this technical assistance. And so if you have a retailer in any of the counties that I just dropped in the chat, then there is a really good chance that there is a person like me and Lucy who could help that retailer. And you can just reach out to me or Lucy directly and we can figure out who to connect you with.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, well, we're at 11:29. I think we can break for now. Keep an eye out for a lot of emails from me, and before we meet again. A lot will have happened, I'm sure, between now and our next meeting. But I'm looking forward to seeing you then. And as always, don't hesitate to reach out if you want to set up a time to connect one-on-one.
Thanks, Mickey. Bye, everyone.
Gracias.
Adios. Thank you. Bye,
Lot
Marian.
of
Thank
good
you.
information. Yay.
Yeah, awesome.
Gracias.
Adios. Thanks, Maria.